Now, the Secretary General of the United Nations is traveling to Ukraine. Antonio Guterres will meet Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Turkish leader Recep Tayyip Erdogan on Thursday. His trip comes amid growing concern about the safety of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant as shelling continues.
At the invitation of President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine, the Secretary General will be in Lviv on Thursday to attend a trilateral meeting with President Recep Tayyip Erdogan of Turkey and the Ukrainian leader. The Secretary General will then go on to Odessa the next day, where he will visit the port that is one of the three being used as part of the Black Sea Grain Initiative. Before returning to New York over the weekend, the Secretary General will be in Istanbul to visit the Joint Coordination Center set up to implement the initiative. As you will all recall, this initiative is part of a deal that also includes the facilitation of Russian grain and fertilizer exports onto the global market.
Well, for more on this, I'm joined by Arise International correspondent Faith Orr, who is in New York. And of course, New York is where the UN is headquartered. Faith, good to see you there. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres on his way to Ukraine. Just bring us a preview of what is going to happen when he's there.
Well, as you heard from his spokesman there, he has been invited by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Now, when Guterres arrives, he is travelling today, but tomorrow is really the main event. He'll be meeting with Zelensky and Turkish President Erdogan, and that will happen in the western city of Lviv, so it's not going to be in the capital, Kyiv. Now, he's meeting with the pair of them for a couple of reasons. Of course, Turkey and the UN have been instrumental in brokering deals between Russia and Ukraine, particularly for grain. His visit is also at a tense time when it comes to Europe's largest nuclear plant, both Ukraine and Russia accusing each other of shelling that plant. So his visit will we're seeing international inspectors trying to get access to that nuclear plant, so his visit will certainly focus on that. We'll certainly focus on grain because, of course, there is a world food crisis, and not just because the Ukrainian grain ships were stopped from leaving ports, but certainly that has contributed towards it. And, of course, he will be pushing for some sort of political solution to the war in Ukraine.
And as you mentioned there, Faith, he'll be discussing the danger posed by the continued fighting around that Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. We've heard worrying reports not long ago about shelling in and around the plant. Is that still continuing? If so, do we know yet who's attacking the plant?
This shelling has been ongoing for some time. It certainly shows no sign of stopping. I mean, we've actually seen some footage of used ammunitions in the grounds near it. Now, we know that Russia is in control of this plant, but it is still being staffed by Ukrainian engineers because Russia doesn't have the staff capable to run it in the country. So their forces are there, but they are, in charge of the Ukrainian staff who were running the plant anyway. Now, there is lots and lots of shelling around this plant in Zaporizhzhia, and each side is blaming the other for the shelling. Russia says, why would we shell the plant? We're already in control of it. But Ukraine is accusing Russia of trying to blackmail the world with this nuclear threat and says that the shelling is part of that. There has been shelling in lots of other areas recently as well, particularly in Odessa, where we saw 4 people wounded overnight in Russian strikes there. Ukraine has released videos of that. So certainly the fighting very much ongoing in these key crucial areas almost 6 months into this war.
And Faith, Mr. Guterres, as you said, sitting down with President Zelensky, they obviously want to do something about the situation around that nuclear plant. But is there much they can actually do?
I mean, Zelensky has said time and again the only way that this will be made safe is for Russian forces to be forced out of that plant. Of course, in order to do that, there's going to be more fighting, which makes the situation more dangerous. We heard from the head of the International Atomic Energy Agency last week, and he said that, things are stable in the plant at the moment, but that can change at a moment's notice because we're seeing so much shelling there. And it is Europe's largest nuclear plant. You know, this isn't some sort of small plant. If there's a disaster there, it's going to rival what happened at Chernobyl. It's going to be big, not just for Ukraine, but for Europe as a whole. You know, it's going to have decades of ramifications if this plant is really struck. So we are looking at lots of, political solutions, lots of inspectors calling to get in, but the UN has said that they can broker a trip from Kyiv out to Zaporizhia for the inspectors, but Russia says it's too dangerous to make any trip through the Ukrainian capital. Now, Russia's saying that Russia's the one that's striking the Ukrainian capital. So if they were to stop that, then perhaps more inspectors could make it. Doesn't seem like there's going to be a political solution to this anytime soon.
Faith, thanks very much indeed for that analysis and the update. Faith Orr is Arise international correspondent, and she was talking to me from New York, where the UN is headquartered.